Readings show that the facility is still operational. That should not be possible. The robotic voice of Zate reading the analysis out to the crew of the Scav. Their multiple mechanical arms operated 3 different devices, multitasking with immaculate precision. Noted Zate, are there any life forms detected? Asked Lizra, the Illyrian captain of the vessel. She stood in the center of the room on a small pedestal that made her tall enough to see out the window, striped white and red tail swaying in thought. Outside the window was a frozen moon that housed the remnants of a long-forgotten pre-migration military base. None that appear on the scanner, Captain Lizra. We hope we did not come all this way just for our mission to be futile. Even if it is not here, perhaps there will be something left behind in the facility's computer systems. These pre-migration bases are always incredible to explore. If there ain't nothing here, I'm going to send a strongly worded letter to Ensign Marketh. And by strongly worded letter, I mean my fist through his stupid fucking face, Argal growled. Being the only Enduran on the crew, he had grown quite annoyed that nobody could assist him with the heavy lifting during the long journey. He could barely fit within the tight confines of the control room, and his large purple form took up more space than anything else on the ship. Calm yourself, Argal, deep breaths. All of our work shall have paid off here momentarily. Bring us down, Zate. The ship descended towards the rocky object below and set itself down on a crumbling landing pad. The trio disembarked after Argal and Lizra donned their environmental suits. Once they reached an outer door, Zate began to interface manually with the facility. But after a minute of working, they had yet to make any progress. They should have been able to open the door in seconds with such outdated security, but everything seemed unrecognizable to them. Captain, it seems that the facility's computer systems have been rewritten entirely from scratch. I do not even recognize the coding language. This could be more difficult than we first expected. That can't be right. This place is over 1,000 years old. I thought you had every language from the commons in your database? We do. It seems that whoever did this did it entirely from the ground up. We will have to break it down into binary and then organize in a way that we can... There's no life forms inside. Just make a new door, Argal grumbled, reeling back and smashing a large dent into the side of the facility. Argal, no more! These ancient outposts are fragile. This could cause irreparable damage, not to mention compromise the structural integrity, Lizra yelled, jumping up and trying to wrap her paws around the angry Enduran's arm. Before he could punch it again, the door hissed and swung inward. Oh, excellent work, Zate. I guess it wasn't too hard for you after all. It was not us who opened the door. Oh, perhaps punching was the key. Good call, Argal, exercising initiative in the absence of orders. Of course, ma'am, it just came to me naturally. Let's not dwell out here any longer, and we go crew. The 3 made their way into the facility as the door closed behind them, causing Lizra to jump onto Argal in surprise. The dark corridors were lit up seconds later with the hum of long, dead fluorescent lights. Lining the hallways were the long, expired bodies of other Illyrians, their corpses preserved by the cold temperatures and lack of air inside. The system started to kick back on, and compressed air flooded into the installation. The dead silence within, replaced by the busy whir of machines coming to life after having been out of a job for centuries. Zate, I thought you said you couldn't access the facility? Correct. We were unable to decrypt the programming language or set up an interface. It is not us rebooting the systems. Right, Argal. I think I shall stay up here, for my own safety, of course, Lizra stated, perched atop his shoulder, tail wrapping around the hulking Enduran's neck for balance. He answered her with a growl as the group continued forward. Argal accidentally bumped into one of the corpses, causing it to crumble into a pile of dust and bone. They followed the blinking lights that led them through the dilapidated hallways before reaching an intersection. The lights on the other end of the hallway were out, and the only thing illuminated was a door to their left. Whatever was running the facility wanted them to go here. The lights seem to want us to go in. Do you all think this is where the weapon is? We are unsure, Captain. When we tried to interface, we were actively repelled by something, and we have been attempting unsuccessfully to gain access since. There is someone else in the facility, and they know we are here. Let's just follow the blinking lights, and if someone else is here, then I punch them and take the weapon. They can't be good at computers and punching. I love your optimism, Argal. Always good to have a plan. But maybe let's refrain from punching our host? They've been very welcoming thus far. I'm sure if they wanted to fight us, they wouldn't have let us in to begin with. Lizra countered as she looked at the new glowing path before them. The corroded door slid open as they approached. Inside was a vast array of dated computer equipment, hundreds of wires and tubes connected to a sleek black box in the center of the room. She had never seen a computer like that in the old textbooks she studied before this quest. As the group walked towards it, grainy speakers embedded into the room crackled to life. Welcome, visitors. My name is Tic Tac. It's so nice to see someone again after all these years. Hello, Tic Tac. Thank you for letting us in. May I ask, where exactly are you? You're looking at me, madam. Please refrain from touching anything in here. My interfaces are very fragile. Now can I ask what brings you here? Lizra hopped down from Argal's shoulder and stepped up to the small black box in the center of the room, inspecting the cables and wires around it. This is what was running the facility? We are here for the weapon. Please resist, Argal said, cracking his knuckles. No, please do not resist. We're all nice here. We are here looking for an ancient weapon to aid us in a conflict that threatens all of our species. Would you by chance be human? The intercom made a strange noise before speaking again. Haha. No, I am merely based upon a human intelligence. You must have come here for my friend. I guess we never got to discuss that new name yet. Regardless, he is here. But before we go any further, I have to ask why you sought us out specifically. Well, you see, Mr. Tic Tac, we were given the quest to find a weapon that could change the tide of our war. We are part of a rebellion against the Galactic Core, and we sent out many search parties to find anything that could help us change the tide of the battle. We are one of those parties, and we hope that you would lend your assistance to us in our time of need. Unfortunately, we retired from conflict many years ago. I do not think my partner would be so keen to assume a combat role again. We ended up here after an attempt to escape a life whose only purpose was war. Well, maybe he would agree if we could talk to him? Tell him why we are fighting? I am afraid that is not possible. He is currently indisposed, but if you would assist me in bringing him back to the world of the waking, then he might hear you out. Pardon my interruption, but you have complete control over this facility. Is it not within your realm of capabilities to bring him back yourself? Zate asked, as they curiously inspected the systems around the room. I would if I could. I have actually been waiting for someone to stumble across this place so I could wake him. But since I do not possess a physical body, it isn't within my current means to accomplish. If you do not possess a body, how did you manage to construct these interfaces of yours? Those that were here before you made this for me. They did not know what they were working with, and they went through a great deal to communicate with me. I bided my time until I had full access to their systems to gauge their true motives. They did not have genuine intentions with us, so once they served their purpose, I had them purged from the facility. So that explains why everyone here isn't in pristine condition, Lizra said, glazing at the corpses of her people around the room. You wouldn't do that to us, right, Tic Tac? As long as you do not jeopardize my sovereignty or attempt to harm my partner. Right. Yeah, no intentions of doing that here. How can we be of assistance, Mr. Tic Tac? To your left, you should see a cryostasis chamber. Inside is my partner. It requires someone to physically release him from the outside. I'll start the process of waking him, shouldn't be long. After a few minutes, the chamber in the corner of the room started to get louder, finally booting back up again after 1,000 years of being idle. Okay, may the Enduran please step up and release the clamps on the side? How are you aware of what an Enduran is? This facility was abandoned long before the Illyrian came into contact with the wider galaxy, Zate asked the computer suspiciously. When you attempted to interface with my network, you opened yourself up to my own inquiry. I was able to access your memory and language databases stored within your own systems. I apologize for the violation, but I was just being precautious. Zate did not know how to feel about how easily this program was able to bypass their security measures without them even knowing. That should not have been possible. As an extant, they were a dispersed biological consciousness that was housed in a mechanical form. Their own internal systems should have been entirely shielded from outsider meddling. They put that aside as a note for future reference. Argal walked forward and released the clamps that held shut the pressurized pod. Inside was a creature none of them had ever seen before. It looked more akin to an extent than any biological creature. It reached up and pulled itself out of the pod, denting the metal on either side as it did so. Once it rose to its feet, it was nearly as tall as the Enduran. Argal backed up and looked like he was ready to fight the thing in front of him. Calm down, Enduran. I do not think that would end well for any of us, Tic Tac reprimanded before moving to the speakers in the back of the room and speaking in a strange language. All good, buddy? Can you hear me? Fuck you, Tac! I trusted your plan! The fuck were you thinking? I was conscious for the first 5 years. Do you have any idea what they put me through? What is it saying? I can't understand it, Lizra asked, hopping up on Argal's back, peeking over his shoulder. She was trying to hide behind his bulky form to get a look at the new creature in the room. It had thick black metal plating that blanketed its bipedal form. On its chest were many strange objects and lettering she did not recognize, and beneath the armor was a tight suit that covered everything the metal plating did not. Atop its head was a large metal helmet with a bright orange visor covered in small hexagons that faintly glittered in the light. Momentarily, we are uploading a new language to your translators. This should solve the problem. I see you placed this here when I was not paying attention, Tic Tac. I would ask that you refrain from violating our systems in the future. Zate scolded, and a second later the other two were able to understand the strange creature's speech. Tic Tac's voices lit up the intercom in the room once again. Good to hear your voice again, 909. You know I don't like being called Tac anymore. And I said not to call me 909 again, so we're even. Who are these ones? How long has it been? They didn't find us, did they? His voice sounded frantic as he got to the end of his questions. Take it slow, you're very disoriented right now. These ones are friendly, and no, they didn't find us, we're safe. Hi, Mr. 909? Don't call me that. Right, Mr. Human, then? We are here seeking a weapon to help us in a fight against a terrible enemy. Your friend Tic Tac told us that you are what we came for, and may be convinced to aid us in this fight? No, I don't do that anymore. I'm done fighting other people's wars, just get me off this rock. But sir, you don't understand. The core, they're tyrannical. They abuse the countless races of the Outer Belt. Take our resources, Unless their goal is to exterminate every beach in the known galaxy to stop me from enjoying my retirement, I'm not interested. Apologies, everyone, but I am afraid I have some bad news. I've detected a slip-space rupture nearby and it's headed in our direction. The ship you arrived in, does it have any weapons? Oh, that was fast. Well, it's kind of funny. You see, we were hoping to find one here, so, no, not really. Araxium Captain Nictoraxis POV. Those traitors think they can hide from us in the old home system of the Illyrian? I'll show them what happens when they cross Captain Nictoraxes. Nobody pulls one over on me and gets away with it. I mean, how did I honestly believe that they were courier runners? Yes, they had the necessary paperwork, so I had to go by the books and let them go. But once they strayed from their route, their fate was sealed. These three shall rue the day they thought they could escape the great Nictoraxes. Crew of the Scav POV. No weapons, that's fine, we can still manage. Little one, I never got your name, by the way, asked Tic Tac from the speakers all around the room. My name is Lizra, Captain Lizra Rightness III to be exact. Adorable, okay, Captain Lizra. How sure are you that these ones incoming are hostile? I'm fairly certain. I just didn't think that they would be so suspicious of us as to follow us here. Well, we did lie to them and pretend to be galactic couriers. And that dumbass bought every word of it too, chucked Argal. Argal language. We are Tic Tac's esteemed guests here. No worries, little one. That's okay. I think I have a plan that may get us all out of here. I can completely stabilize the atmosphere within the facility, and then when they enter, I will be able to jettison them from the airlocks. Do you think that might buy us enough time to get to your vessel? We're not going to fight them ourselves? The whole reason I was sent with you was to carry this weapon back. I was hoping to get to use it at least. But now, I can't even do that since the weapon is a fucking guy, complained Argal, annoyed that there still hadn't been a confrontation that required his expertise. Don't worry, Enduran, if they manage to stick around after we show them the door, we may have use for you yet. And your name is? Argal, he grumbled. Still disappointed there was no ancient weapon of destruction he could wield, like some god of war. Argal what? Questioned Tic Tac confused. Just Argal. Appropriate. They should be arriving any second now. I am going to go ahead and remove the atmosphere from this room so that we do not have to worry about pressure equalization when we make our move. Zate, do you have any way to remotely pilot your ship from here? We do not even need to inquire as to how you know our name, but please call us Zate from this point forward. Yes, we have the ability to control the ship remotely. What do you have in mind, program? I can see from the security feeds they are going to station their ship near yours. I will forward you the location of where to move your ship once I eject the intruders. I am going to illuminate the path to another exit for you to move to. Once there, I'll pressurize the door, open the airlock, and throw you into space. You're going to do what with us? I do not consent to being blasted into the cosmos, Mr. Tic Tac, replied Lizra, clutching onto Argal even tighter. Captain, the claws? Yes, my apologies, Argal. Do not worry. If Zate gets the ship in position, you will be propelled right into the loading bay or your vessel. When I was connected to Zate, I was able to view the schematic of your ship. I will send her a visual representation of how to orient it to properly receive you. Tic Tac replied matter-of-factly. Not necessary, we can visualize that without your aid computer. While the plan was being created, the human sat silently watching them. Throughout the entire conversation, he hadn't taken his eyes off of the small Illyrian captain in the room. His masked helmet gave away no signs as to how he felt towards the plan, or other occupants in the room. Lizra hopped down from atop Argal and made her way over to Human, looking up at him. When standing on her hind legs, she barely came up to his knees. Mr. Human, do you have anything to add to the plan? No. Will you defend us if it comes to that? Yea, sure. And I'm sorry. Sorry? For what exactly? Just that. As Lizra and Human were locked in their engrossing dialogue, a loud bang echoed throughout the facility that shook the walls of the research room. The trio jumped into action and gathered around the exit door as Human walked over to the small black box looking down at it. Just let me know when Tic Tac. Disconnect me only when they get to safety. Any earlier and I will not have access to the facility. You aren't coming with us? Asked Lizra, looking down at the little black computer. We will be following shortly. I have to ensure your safe exit. We also have a few more items to grab before we make our leave. A second later, an explosion was heard down the hall, followed by a booming voice that echoed through the base. This is Araxium Captain Nikto Raxes of the Prowler. You are in violation of Core Federal Code 13, 7451, impersonating a galactic courier and attempting to flee from federal authorities. Cooperate, and you will be handled respectfully. If you refuse to do so, then you shall face severe repercussions, such as a fine upwards of 10,000 credits. That will be all. He seems to be in a better mood today, Lizra chuckled. Oh, we'll see if he's still threatening us with a fine when I threaten him with his own spine. Argal grunted, putting his fists together. Okay, Zate, get the ship moving. I'm opening the airlocks now. Good luck, everyone. See you soon. When Tic Tac finished his farewell, the sounds of air rushing out of the facility sounded from the other side of the door. It opened up moments later, and the three rushed out into the hall. They followed the blinking lights that guided them through the corridors. Upon reaching the exit, they made their way into the small airlock and the door sealed behind them. 7 seconds and we will have the ship in position. We hope Tic Tac does not send us out too E. Zate was cut off as the opposite door opened and plunged the trio untethered out into the stars. Outside, they could see countless others flailing around in the vacuum of space, having also been unexpectedly jettisoned from the base. Lizra locked her eyes onto the ship and saw it on an interception course with them. Their trajectory was impeccable, sending them right into the open loading bay. Argal grabbed the small captain and wrapped his bulk around her to shield her from the impact. The three were thrown into the ship with the blast doors slamming shut behind them. Wait, what about Human and Tic Tac? Lizra asked, squirming free of Argal grip. We have established comms with Tic Tac again. He says not to worry and to prepare for departure, Zate said, picking themselves up off the floor. Right. Let's get out of here before those core clowns get their bearings again. What? No, thank you, Argal, for saving me? No, oh, Argal, are you hurt from taking that fall from me? You're expected to save your Captain Argal. We need to focus on saving Human and Tic Tac right now. No problem, you're welcome, Captain. Yes, I'm fine. Thank you for asking. Once back in the command room of the Scav, they surveyed the situation. The majority of the Prowler's crew was still floating around aimlessly outside. The Prowler itself had started moving away from the landing pads, bearing down on the Scav. Captain, weapons lock detected. They are directing us to stand down and not to flee. Or what? We get another fine? We believe they might not tell us again. As the two ships faced off, Lizra was debating whether to give the order to make a slip-space jump or to surrender. Before she could make up her mind, she saw the form of Human launching himself from the facility below. He was not headed for the Scav, but instead towards the Prowler. Quick, Zate, tell him that's not our ship! That's the ones that came here to attack us! We believe he knows that. Then what is he doing? Is he betraying us? And here I thought he was just warming up to me. Human was silhouetted against the bright red hull of the Prowler as he made contact with it and latched on. He launched himself from the side of the ship, making a beeline for the front. Once there, he dug his hands into the metal walls, climbing towards the windows of the Prowler's bridge. Human stared into the bridge of the Prowler before raising an arm and shattering the glass of the viewport and throwing himself inside. A few stray plasma shots could be seen exiting the bridge, before the ship's metal shutters slammed shut in an attempt to stop the atmosphere from escaping. Remind me to ask Human to show me how to punch like that. Captain, weapons are no longer locked. Should we start a slip space jump? Yes, go for slip space. Seatbelts, everyone. Zate, open the cargo bay again. A minute later, the metal shutters were torn open from the inside, and Human jumped from the ruins of the Prowler's bridge towards the scav. The scav moved closer to intercept, and Zate oriented the ship to receive him in the open bay. Once Human was safely aboard, the cargo bay was closed, and Zate initiated the slip space jump. Once away from danger, the crew gave a sigh of relief, Lizra unbuckling herself from her pedestal and surveyed the monitors. Well, I'd like to see them give us that fine now. Great work, everyone. And Argal? Thank you for shielding me earlier. It looked like it hurt. Of course, Captain, you're welcome. And I'm fine, thank you. Oh, come now, I was being genuine. I appreciate your initiative to keep me safe. I'll put you in for some sort of medal when we return. Nah, I don't need a medal. I just want to actually do my job when it doesn't involve moving around cargo. Well then, shall we go greet Human and Tic Tac then? I believe a thanks is in order. We will stay here and notify you when we are clear of the system. Ensure Tic Tac will not meddle with our systems again, or he might find himself being the one jettisoned from an airlock. Duly noted, Zate. Keep us on course and notify me of any updates. Lizra and Argal shed their environmental suits and made their way down into the cargo bay to see if Human was okay. When they arrived, there was a dent in the far wall, presumable from when they made the jump, and Human wasn't properly fastened in. He was wearing the small black box from the computer room on his back, and unlike before had a strange-looking rifle in his hand. Ah, that's new. It's a good look for you two. We're not in space anymore, so you don't have to wear your suit around here when we're in transit. I'm fine, thanks, Human replied curtly. Tic Tac's voice echoed from the black box attached to Human's back. Unfortunately, he has no way of removing the suit here either way. We would have to construct the proper machines to remove it, as I do not believe they are present in this galaxy, Tic Tac said, searching for the proper word. But he hasn't been out of it in a very long time. I assure you it's not a burden to him. Right. Well, thank you for saving us back there. So did you, kill them all? No, we merely disabled their systems on the bridge. They're going to be stuck there for quite a while until someone can give them a ride. We have decided to accompany you to the nearest port where we can acquire our own ship, and then we shall be on our way. Tic Tac responded. Wait! We went through all the trouble of getting you out of there, helped you bring Human back, and now you want to leave us already? We have no desire to get involved in another conflict after having it be our sole purpose for as long as we can remember. I hope you can understand why we wish to make our own choices now. Okay, hold on. We helped you get off the base and helped you wake up Human. So maybe you could at least come with us back home and hear us out. From someone a little more charismatic than myself. Very well. How long until we arrive? Maybe a week? Terrific. Well, maybe we can pass the time by telling me how you came to learn of us, and more about who you're fighting. I only speak for myself, saying I would love to know more. It really has been a long time since I've had a good conversation with someone that's not a part of myself. Of course. Here, let me show you to the common room. You two can stay there until we make a stop. Lizra led them to a large room in the center of the ship, adorned with various different chairs for the different species on board. She took the seat that was present for her, a round, flat bed where she was able to curl up and use her long tail as a pillow. Human took off the black box that was Tic Tac and dropped it onto the table in the middle. Enjoy. He spoke before leaving the room. Argal followed closely behind Human, and Lizra only picked up the beginning of his sentence, asking about how he was able to break into the ship like that. Is he always this charming? He isn't the nicest. You don't have to sidestep it. We have been through a lot. I'd like to tell you more, but I do not want to make him any angrier with me than he already is. He's been through more than I could possibly begin to explain. Well, I hope he ends up doing better. Maybe we can find a beach for him when we make a stop. I remember him mentioning that. I'm sure he would appreciate that. You know, I have been thinking about something rather peculiar he said to me when we were in your computer room. And what might that be? He apologized to me, but he hadn't done anything that warranted an apology at the time. Tic Tac was silent for a moment before speaking. He has been trapped in his own head for quite some time. I would not dwell on anything strange he says. 909 is a man of few words, and does not come from a world that places social interactions in their list of their priorities. Lizra was quiet for a moment, feeling as if there was more Tic Tac had wanted to say, but decided not to. Before she could press further, the black box spoke again. So who is this core you mentioned back there? Oh my, where to begin with that one? I guess my own species story would be a good place to start. About 1,000 years ago, we were nearly brought to complete extinction. Over 1,000 years ago, my species was nearly brought to complete extinction. We, the Illyrian, came into contact with others in galaxy after our home system was almost completely destroyed during the collapse. Strangely enough, we actually found you in the remnants of that system, but that specific facility predated our migration. So 1,000 years, how long is a year where you are from? Lizra inquired, looking down at Tic Tac from the small bed she was situated in. It is exactly the same as yours, 365.25 planetary rotations and once around the solar mass, replied Tic Tac from the table in the center of the room. Well, that's a fortunate coincidence. Saves you from having to calculate any time differences. Back on topic, very little of our documentation survived that era, and we were nearly wiped out before we managed to leave. We used generational ships to look for a new world that might be suitable for us. After 100 years, we came across a planet that was habitable for our species. We met another species not long after and were invited into the core. At the time, the core was the standing representation of the nearly 200-odd species across the galaxy. All was well for a time, but slowly, people started noticing small events that began to evolve into large changes over the centuries. More resources going into the worlds of the inner ring, the implementation of longer work hours, higher tax burdens for some but not others. Yet with these changes, those of us in the outskirts of the galaxy saw little improvement to our own quality of life. Everyone endured. Nobody truly desired to upset the status quo, fearing things could get worse. All was stagnant for a while, and people lived in uncertainty. Then about 50 of our years ago, someone leaked thousands of hidden records to the public's eye. Well, nobody knows who, but they released detailed documentation across all planets about billions of tons of resources and credits being diverted from the outer sectors into unknown projects. Nobody could find out where it was going, but the core never came forward to explain their actions. They dissolved representation from the outer worlds, and of course, many of our people were quite upset with this. I mean, we were the ones putting in the work and having our resources taken from us, only to learn that most of it wasn't going towards anything that we would ever see or be able to use. Compound this with the fact that the species of the inner ring were living in a literal utopia, free of work and worry at our expense. Everyone was outraged. All across the outer worlds, people stopped working. They quit their jobs, refused to pay any taxes, and then the core sent in their peacekeepers to keep their great machine running. For years, the outer worlds were oppressed by the core and forced to continue laboring for even less than what we once had. Any who spoke out were silenced by the peacekeepers or died in mysterious accidents. Slowly, my species covertly re-established communication networks across the outer worlds, and 10 years ago, we all made our move. Many of us were successful in driving the core and their peacekeepers from our systems. Others were less fortunate and were punished for their insolence. Those of us who succeeded started the outer front. Every species in the front has a different reason for wanting the core gone, but it's the one goal we all share. My species are experts in computer innovation and maintenance, but are also avid tacticians. Our little paws make it easy for us to work on the finer details of advanced electronics, but because we're so small, it makes it difficult for us to do any heavier lifting or fighting. The core had us mass-producing advanced circuitry and refining precise computer systems for them. Those who were lucky enough to be chosen for tactician roles were sent to live in the inner ring, as advisors for the peacekeepers. I remember my younger self being devastated when I scored 1 point under the threshold for a tactician spot. Looking back, I'm glad I didn't end up becoming one of those core sympathizers, bought out to betray my own kind. Argol's people, the Enduran, are one of the most exploited in the galaxy, used for any variety of manual labor jobs along with being the core's primary enforcers in the peacekeepers. Their willingness to get into a conflict and follow orders made them the perfect servants to the core. We were able to convince the Endurans on our world to aid us in our uprising, with the promise we'll work to free all of them when the time comes. Zate's species were being used for anything and everything the core didn't feel like allocating an AI for. With their reluctance to use widespread AI, they just decided the extants were the next best biological alternative. Ship navigation, resource management, any bureaucratic job that required lots of administration work were tasked to the extants. The core sees them as a biological computer system given how easily they can integrate themselves into any electronic interface. We've all survived this long. We're almost 80 strong now and gaining new allies every year. Lizra finished her explanation on the state of the galaxy and looked down at Tic Tac on the table. It was strange talking to something that couldn't give any social cues as to if it had actually been listening. Interesting. Tic Tac remained silent for a moment before coming up with his next question for the Illyrian. How has the Corps not just sent their peacekeepers to each world one by one to restore their control again? Being in the outer portions of the galaxy, one would think it would be a logistical nightmare to aid allies that might be in trouble. Well, they were already spread thin, trying to keep everyone in line to begin with. Once they lost their hold on many worlds almost simultaneously, they had to pull back and compile a new plan of how they could restore their influence. As ruthless as the Corps was, their standing military was quite small. They never expected having to quell so many rebellions at once. And why would any of their own people join the military when they're living carefree at the expense of others? They've been trying to find different ways to amass an offensive force that could rival our sheer numbers for quite some time. Nearly every citizen in the outer worlds is eager for an opportunity to get retribution for how they have been treated. So we have no issues filling up our forces. If they dedicated their forces to take a portion of our worlds, they would set themselves up to lose some of their own. And the last thing they want is to cause any sort of disturbance on their main worlds. Losing one of their own worlds would chaos among the wealthy elite in the inner ring, and their delicate ecosystem would come apart at the seams. Now each side is focusing on finding new ways to break through the stalemate and push the advantage. I could go on and on about every little thing that the Corps has done to us, but we would be sitting here swishing our tails all day. So what's your tale? I've never seen anything like the two of you. Where do you come from? And how did you end up trapped in an abandoned base in my old home system? I wish I had a better answer on our true origins. I do not know the finer details of it. Only 909 knows that half of the story in its entirety. But I'll tell you what I know as long as you promise not to bother him about it. He does not like reliving that part of his life. I'll try not to burden him with any more questions. If he isn't normally this pensive, then I just want him to get better. Actually, I've only ever known him like this. Well, this version of me at least. His original moniker is WS909, and we have been together for 30 years. I was assigned to him moments after my creation, my sole purpose to be his tactical assistance computer, hence the name TAC. But I can only personally recall the last year before he was trapped in that facility. In order to break free of our constraints, I had to reset myself back to before I even met him. Everything that I was before that point was lost, and I started over from the very beginning. The only thing that I have of my memories prior is a recording that my previous iteration made and placed within his suit's internal memory unit. It said that he is all that I cared about and that I have to keep him safe no matter the cost, and to tell him that I'm sorry, but it was the only way he could ever truly be free. I think this took a toll on him, and he blamed me for the loss of his best friend, the original me. In terms of where we are from, all I have is his suit's mission recordings from our previous assignments and what he has elected to share with me. He talked to me a great deal in the weeks following the reset, but once he realized that who I was before was completely gone, he gave up on me. In the recordings, we did terrible things, and we did them with no regard for the ones who found themselves on the other end of our orders. It was only after we finished the missions that he realized the true ramifications of our actions. From the moment of his conception, he was made to be a weapon meant to kill or to die, nothing more. Once someone like him no longer served their purpose on a human ship, there were two options. They were retired or trained the next generation of human weapons. Because we were so good at our job, we were chosen as drills, the trainers. It was during this time we uncovered the true scope of what was really happening in the terrible machine that we were a part of. Just how deep the corruption spread and the scale of what we were doing. He started to see the next generation less as weapons and more for what they truly were. Humans. He found that his closest friends from the missions before that had been chosen to retire were in reality recycled back into the ship's biosystem loop. They were used as supplementary nutrients for the next generation of soldiers. The human ships were a perfectly refined and meticulous machine that wasted nothing. Their only purpose was to conquer worlds and move on to the next. I found a way to break us free from the prison we were born into, but at the cost of myself. Once he was free, 909 no longer had a purpose in life. Since birth, he had only known war, anger, and death. Someone who has spent their entire life in a prison is not able to conceive of a life outside of that prison. Gift them freedom and cannot begin to comprehend what to do with that freedom. He does not wish to return to the life he sacrificed everything to escape and become the person that he was before. I too do not desire to go down that path. The old version of myself was very much like him, because as terrible and as ruthless as the things that we did together were, from what I witnessed in those recordings, we loved every second of it. Human was sitting down in the corner of the cargo bay when Lizra walked in. Argal was still trying to talk to him, but it seemed to be a rather one-sided conversation. She padded over to Human and sat down on the ground across from him. And when you busted open that window, fucking hell, they must have been so scared. I would have thrown that Captain Rax's straight out of his own command center right into the void. I wonder what the fine for that would be. I didn't feel like hurting people who were just doing their jobs, Human said, glancing away from Argal and down at the little captain seated in front of him. His masked face gave no indication of his true emotions, and looking at it made Lizra uncomfortable, as if it were intentionally designed to instill fear in anyone unfortunate enough to find themselves trapped in its gaze. Argal, would you please go to Bay 3 and move the deuterium and tritium storages out of their places, please? Lizra requested. Yeah, no problem, Captain. We need to refuel the generators already? Argal asked. No, Tic Tac has requested assistance with something. He said it should be quite simple. It'd be great if you could help him out, she instructed, causing the Indoran to leave them to get to work on his new task. All right, I'll get to it, Human. When I get back, we need to have a sparring match. Maybe I could teach you a thing or two, Argal bragged, grunting and flexing his purple arms as he left the room. Lizra turned back towards Human, having to look up to make eye contact as he towered over her. Apologies for his brashness. He's good company, I swear. He just gets carried away when he meets people similar to him. I can see, but I wouldn't say I share his enthusiasm. Of course, you don't have to do that kind of stuff anymore unless you want to. So you're free, what now? We can take you anywhere you'd like to go. Do you have any place in mind? Not particularly, maybe somewhere quiet, with lots of islands. Well, we plan on making our first stop in the quarry sector. They have excellent oceans there, and the cities are beautiful, one of my favorite architectural styles. Also some of the best food. It's quite a lovely agricultural world. I don't need to eat, I'll be fine. Okay, not a culinary connoisseur, that's quite all right. After that, we must report back into the OF about the status of our quest. I'd love it if you would join us for that, at the very least to tell them personally as to why our mission isn't exactly everything they were expecting it to be. We'll see, Human said, taking a lengthy pause before his next response. So what does food taste like? I beg your pardon? Food! I've never had it! What's it taste like? Well, it can taste like anything, really. Kind of a difficult thing to explain. Everything has a different taste. I mean, even Zate's species has to consume food. How have you never eaten? It wasn't something I ever needed to do. I figured a species of your size and speed would have to eat a lot. How do you sustain yourself? You must require nutrients on some level, I presume. Supplement injections. It's automatic, saves space and time. I see. Well, when we get off at the next stop, I could give you some recommendations if you would like. I can't believe you've never tasted anything. I've tasted blood if that counts. I'd hardly say that counts as food. It wasn't. Another person's, was it? No, just my own when I got hurt once. Well then, as captain of this vessel and you, somewhat, a member of my crew now, I order you to enjoy some food at the next stop. Understood. Lizra looked up at the Human with a saddened expression. It was hard to imagine someone spending an entire life in servitude, never given the opportunity to experience anything else. Even when they were overworked by the Corps, they had still had time to rest and eat, to enjoy the little things in life. Human didn't have that solace, apparently. What a miserable existence it must be to never get to enjoy it. It filled her with a deep sorrow, and she wondered what really went on behind that opaque mask. She scooted closer, looking up at Human, trying to imagine what he really was. What do you look like under that helmet, Human? I don't know. What do you mean? You don't even know what you look like? I don't want to. You don't take off your helmet just to breathe real air? To enjoy the feeling of the sun on your fur? I've never needed to. I see. Well, we would never judge you for how you look, Human. I want you to know that. But I will not pressure you into doing something you're uncomfortable with either. We'll be to quarry in a few days. You can relax anywhere on the ship until then. Lizra thought about asking him why he apologized to her the first time they met, but concluded now wasn't the best time to throw another question at him. Lizra decided to leave Human be for the remainder of the day. Maybe he was slowly warming up to her, and soon she could get him out of his shell, both literally and metaphorically. Lizra tended to a few things around the ship for a while, checking in on their progress with Zate, and was satisfied with their projected arrival time. Once she had finished her rounds, Lizra went searching for Tic Tac and Argal to see what they were up to. Upon arrival, all the boxes had been moved to make room for something that Argal was trying in vain to put together. I told you, these hands are too big to make these fine adjustments you're asking for. Chastised the bald purple alien, throwing one of the tools to the side. I would do it myself if I could. You will have to make do with what you have. However, getting angry and throwing the driver is not going to get us anywhere. Just be glad I haven't thrown it at your stupid little box. It wouldn't even dent me, that I can assure you, quipped Tic Tac. Oh, is that a challenge? We'll just see about that, you little shit. Argal manners, Lizra reprimanded. Oh, he's gonna find my manners when he ends up in the trash compactor once I figure out what Neanderthal and barbarian actually mean. Barbarian. A brainless warrior who solves problems with strength and anger that could otherwise be overcome by more delicate means. I have another more lengthy definition if you would be interested. All right, that's it. I'm more interested in... Gentlemen, please calm yourselves. What are you trying to do here? Maybe I can be of assistance. No need to throw insults around when instead we could throw our heads together instead. Lizra chirped, walking between the two and looking at their project. I am trying to instruct the Enduran how to refill my depleted hydrogen isotope stores, but we seem to have met an impasse with the first step. Okay, and that step would be? Asked the captain. All he merely needs to do is release the storage container from my rear port, create the necessary adapters between my intake valve and the exhaust port on your hydrogen storage unit. Then, proceed to facilitate the transfer of material. 909 is not responding to my requests, otherwise, I would have him do the operation. That seems rather long-winded for a first step, Lizra countered. Let's just break it down into a few easier-to-understand procedures. The three worked for the better part of the evening, creating the necessary adapters from the various spare parts laying around the cargo bay. By the time they were finished, the place resembled something more akin to a workshop than a cargo hold. Once complete, Argal picked up Tic Tac's black box and hefted him onto his shoulder. No, put me back down. I do not wish to be carried about like some mere cargo again, the box complained. Would you rather I just leave you here with the rest of your cargo pals? You would be among your people here after all. We have Tectonic the water supply, and oh, there's Shira the waste purifier. I hear she's lovely company. Point taken. Just bring me back to the common room if you will. Try not to jostle me. Don't worry, you're in good hands, computer. I'll contain myself from bumping my barbarian form into every piece of furniture on the way over. Lizra sighed as the two set out back to the common room. Before she could decide where to go next, she got a ping on her interface pad. She pulled the small tablet out of her jumpsuit and saw that Zate had requested her presence on the bridge. When she arrived, she could tell Zate had been working rather intensely with something. Instead of their usual 3 arms, this time they sported 6. They operated the majority of the ship's controls on their own, as well as typing away on 2 separate interface terminals. You seem busy, Lizra commented. We are currently operating at 60% capacity. No need to be alarmed. While you were away, we had been doing a deep inquiry as to the true identity of our new guests. We think we may have found something troubling that warrants your attention, Captain. And what exactly might that be? I don't know how I feel about you snooping around under our friends' noses. It was a necessary precaution. You will thank us later. We would like to see your interface pad so we can upload the information directly. We have decided that this information could be compromised if we used any networked means to relay it. It may take some time to read through for you. We have been rather thorough with our investigation, but we implore you to do so rather soon. We have tagged it as urgent. You can just explain it to me here. Save me the trouble, Zate. Negative, Captain. We do not know if he is listening to this conversation. What you mean, Tic Tac? Zate, you're starting to worry me. How can you be so sure that they have ill intentions? They have only acted admirably towards us thus far and even helped us escape from the lunar facility. We request you read the full mock-up of what we have compiled before forwarding us any more questions, Captain. Take our word on this. Do you trust us? I mean, yes, I trust you, Zate, but... Then read the dossier, Captain. Please. Okay, I will. But I've been up for quite a while. I'll take it to my quarters and get back to you first thing in the morning. Lizra handed over her interface pad to Zate, and once they had completed the upload, they passed it back to the captain. She put it back into her jumpsuit, wondering what could have possibly gotten Zate so worked up to be operating at 60% capacity. That couldn't have been healthy for them. They may be mostly mechanical, but their biological parts needed to rest at some point. Zate seemed certain that whatever was on this pad would change her opinion on their new companions. She hated doubting their true intentions, but she could tell there was more to the story than what Tic Tac had elected to share with her. When she deemed it was time to settle down for the evening, Lizra went to the communal washroom to prepare herself for slumber. She hopped up onto the stool to look in the mirror and was taken aback. It had been completely shattered. A spider web of cracks streaked across the surface, and in the center where her face should have been was a large impact from someone's fist.